So, hi everyone. Today I'm going to present the results from our project in this current cluster, which is titled Optimizing Turfgrass Fertilization to Reduce Nitrate Losses Through Leaching. So just a brief presentation plan. I'm going to first talk about the context of this project, the different methods that we use in our 3 different phases. I'm going to show you some preliminary results from the current phase and end up with a short conclusion. So just to put that in context, so this project basically is the follow-up of projects that were conducted in the previous clusters. So in cluster 1 and 2, we did some field trials where we did compare different turf fertilization strategies. And we wanted to compare the impact of those strategies on nutrient losses, so both phosphorus and nitrogen, through either runoff or leaching. And what we did show in this previous research is that when you fertilize turf properly, you actually reduce phosphorus losses through runoff because you have a denser surface, so you have lower runoff volumes, which results in lower phosphorus losses. We did also observe in these trials an increase in nitrate losses through leaching. So basically water will not flow over the surface of the turf, but will be slowed down, will infiltrate in the soil. And that can result in some higher losses in nitrate. These losses were pretty low, so we estimate that about 4% of the N that we applied in those in this experiment was recovered in leachate, but we thought we could do better. So that's why this current project, so in cluster 3, we only focus on nitrate losses through leaching, so which is through water that infiltrates through the soil profile. So to do that, we did set up so it's a 3-phase trial. So phase 1 was conducted in 2019. And basically we tried 84 different treatments. So one treatment was created by associating one nitrogen source to a nitrogen rate and application frequency. So this N rate was either applied all at once or split into application during the course of this short-term experiment, which was 8 weeks. So we did that in 3 different soil types. So a loam, which is actually our local soil on campus at the university. We also did tried these treatments on sand, which is, it's not really a soil, it's more of a growing substrate actually. So it's 80% sand and 20% peat moss. And we also went on another experimental farm and harvested some clay to use for that trial. So as I said, we did 84 treatments on these 3 types of soil. We repeated those trials twice during 2019. And we took the best treatments, so the treatments that resulted in the highest turf visual quality while producing low nitrate losses, and we tried them over a longer term period in 2020. In that case, since there was less, it required less space in the greenhouse, we could do the 3 soil type at the same times. And now we are at the phase 3, which is to take the results from those long-term trials in the greenhouse and try them in a field experiment. So results from the short-term experiment that we conducted in 2019 were actually published last year in the Journal of Environmental Quality. So if you want to know more about these results, you can consult this paper. It's actually open free access, so you won't even have to pay to access it. So this is just a picture showing you what it looked like for phase 1. So each of these spots is actually one treatment. So we did apply some fertilizer in each of these spots by hand. Every week we did water each spot by hand again with some water. So just we wanted this amount of water to be sufficient to induce a leachate event. So we did collect water once per week, and this water was analyzed for content in nitrate and ammonia. So this is some results from the first phase of the project. So you have the different nitrogen sources that we tried during this trial at the different rates. And this shows results. This is probably in loam, I guess. Yeah, so this is in loam. And what we can see first is that even our control treatment, which is actually unfertilized, did result in some nitrate losses. So we make the assumption that this happened because we just collected soil in the field. This soil was, mixed, manipulated, and put down in some pots. So just a process of playing with that soil, if you want, which will result in some N mineralization from the organic matter, which could result in some nitrate losses. So basically what we did observe is that most of the polymer coated nitrogen, so either the duration or the polyon here, as well as the corn gluten meal, which is actually natural end source, they all resulted in pretty much very low nitrate losses to leachate. However, sources like urea, which is not really used by itself on turfgrass, anyway, not alone anyway, did result in higher losses. Same thing with XCU, which is sulfur and polymer coated urea, and Uflex, that's stabilized N. So basically it's just urea on which is like coated with a small amount of urease inhibitor and nitrification inhibitor. So it's enzyme that will slow down the conversion of urea to ammonium and then to nitrate. And so these three sources were, well, basically Uflex and XCU were not really efficient to reduce losses in nitrate compared to the other sources that we tried. So they were a little better than straight up urea, especially at the high rate, but they didn't give us a lot of control over nitrate losses through leaching compared to the polymer coated and the natural fertilizer. Just visually speaking, what it looks like. So this is for corn gluten meal with a split rate. So these amount of N were applied in two applications. Split into application. So control, which is no N, and you have at the highest rate, which is 200 kilogram of N per hectare per year. Same thing with polyon. So basically what we did observe with those two sources is that there's really no benefit to go over 150 kilogram of N per hectare. It doesn't really improve turfgrass visual quality, density, and color, but it does increase a little bit nitrate losses. So that was one of our main take-home message for this from this first phase of the experiment. Going over 150 kilogram of N per hectare in either of the three soils that we tried did not provide any benefits on turfgrass visual quality. For the second phase, like I said earlier, we took some of our best treatments from the first phase and tried them over a longer period, so over 20 weeks. We also tried what we call some combination treatment, which are more real-life situation, because when you go and buy turfgrass fertilizer, you will not have only one nitrogen sources in there. You usually have a combination of quick release N, generally urea, and some part of slow release N, which can be either polymer coated or sulfur coated or other technologies to slow down the release of nitrogen. So that's what we tried with those combination product. We also wanted to investigate furthermore with the stabilized urea. So there's very little information in the scientific literature on the effect of stabilized urea to reduce nitrate losses. So we did observe in the first phase that it was not as efficient as we expected. But we wanted to try it at different rates, and another product, which is Umax. So Uflex basically is the residential lawn care version. Umax is the golf course version, so it's more expensive, but it has a higher concentration of the enzyme. So we wanted to compare those sources as well. And basically so these are the average losses over a 20-week period. And so these results are quite boring in a sense that we don't have a lot of losses, but it basically showed that we were able to optimize our treatments. So they all resulted in acceptable turfgrass quality. I'm not showing you this data, but I'm telling you. And they all had very low nitrate losses through leaching. So it's possible to achieve very low losses. So that's so the average is pretty close to zero. Just for your information, the legal limit for water potable quality is 10 milligram per liter, and we're close to 1. That being said, 10, that's a legal limit, but when you start going over 1 milligram of nitrogen per liter, like you know that something's going on. So it's like a warning sign when you go over 1. So we were trying to stay below the 1 milligram per liter line, and we achieved that actually for most of the treatments. So the next phase then, which brings us to the phase 3. So it's a field trial. Like I said, our local soil on campus is loam. So we took the best treatments from the loam greenhouse trial and tried them in the field. So we had 15 plots, which are 10 meters by 5 meters. We tried 5 treatments, replicated 3 times in those 15 plots. There's a drain at the bottom of each plot. I'm going to show you some picture afterwards. This drain leads to a tipping bucket, which allows us to measure leachate volume whenever there's some rain or we decide to irrigate turfgrass. And water samples are collected each day, and there actually are a composite sample from the previous day. So it's not in real time, but it's a composite sample for each day. So these are the plots. So like I said, they're 10 meters by 5 meters. They were excavated when we built them for the first cluster. They were excavated down to a depth of 50 centimeters in the middle and 30 centimeters on each side. The bottom of the plot was covered with a double layer of plastic sheet. We then put a drain in the middle and put back the soil over it. Just before the start of this phase 3, we removed all the sod and put down some fresh new sod in September 2020. I told you about the tipping bucket. So this is a drain that comes out of one of the plot. Water goes to this tipping bucket. Basically, there's an axle here. And whenever there's 500 milliliters of water that goes into the tipping bucket, there's a tip. The tip is registered through a data logger that you see the wire here, which allows us to count the total leachate volume. And on one side of the tipping bucket, there's a highly sophisticated Dollarama plastic bin that we use to collect water samples. And each day we go and take out a sample from there. This bucket were covered with the back like that, just to make sure that there is no rainwater going into it. So that's our experimental setup for phase 3. So the treatments that we use then, so we have an unfertilized control. We have what we call a commercial control, which is, I would say, a typical fertilizer that is used by lawn care companies right now in Quebec City. So it's a 25-10 with 50% slow release N. We add the polyon A treatment, which performed pretty well in our previous trial. So basically that's 100% slow release N that will, so it's polymer coated urea that will release over an 8-week period. So that's what the 8 mean. We also tried a combination treatment, which with which we had good results in our trial. So polyon 8 mixed with corn-gluten meal, 50-50 mix of both fertilizer. And we also tried, I call that an alternative to the commercial control. So straight up urea mixed with polyon 12. So a longer release polyon over 12 weeks, 50-50. Like I said earlier, all treatments were applied at 150 kilogram of N per hectare per year, because that's the optimal rate that we observe in our experiment. Going over that doesn't give us any good improvement in turfgrass quality. This N was split in 4 applications, so in May, June, August, and September. So we didn't apply any fertilizer in July. Usually July, you see some drought period and it's very hot. So turf doesn't grow very well in July. That's why we don't apply fertilizer in this during this period. Data that we collected, so water leaching volume, we collected that with our tipping buckets, water sample content in nitrate N and ammonium N, and we also look for turfgrass general quality. So these two data, water leaching volume, that's in real time, water sample, that's each day, and turf general quality, that's 4 times per year. So I have some preliminary result, mostly on the leachate volume, because I actually got my sample analysis just this morning, so I didn't really have time to look at the actual nitrate content in water. But just regarding leachate volume, so this is for the different treatments over time. So you can see that we have some peaks that usually correspond to high rain events. So I don't think we needed to irrigate our plots this year. Rain was sufficient enough to provide good turf growth. We irrigate irrigate if there's a prolonged drought period. And we don't want to lose our turf basically, because water cannot come back from the phreatic, the water table down in the soil because of the plastic sheet. So we have to make sure that we keep our grass alive, but it's only, I would say, 3 to 4 times per summer usually. So yeah, so this is like the distribution of the leachate volume. So we still had some periods where there is no water that leach. It doesn't mean it didn't rain. So sometimes it will depend on the rain duration and rain intensity. So if you have some short rain, it might be enough to water your turf, but not enough to result in a leaching event, which could have been the case here. So if you look at the cumulative leachate volume from our different treatments, so there seemed to be some big difference early in the season. Like I don't have any stats on that yet, but we will look at it with a statistical analysis in the future. Our polyon 12/gluten treatments or combination treatment seem to have resulted in higher leachate volume. That could be just that could be an effect of what I explained earlier. So if you have if your turf is denser, you have less runoff, but water will infiltrate more in the soil, so it could result in a higher volume. So we'll see what's really happening in there. The other treatments seem to be pretty similar up until September, where then we started to see some differences. Our control treatment was actually always in the lowest end for this leachate volume. Again, We did not measure the runoff volume, so it's possible that this control treatment had a higher runoff volume, which resulted in a lower leachate volume. So next step, like I said earlier, sample analysis. I just got my results this morning, so I'll look into that in the next few weeks. And we will repeat the experiment in 2022. So the same plots, same treatment, which should give us a better picture. So replicated the trial over 2 years. I do expect, what I would like to see is that all those treatments, maybe not the commercial control, but at least the 3 treatments that came up from our greenhouse experiment will result in the high turf quality with very low nitrate losses. So that's my hope. Hopefully below 1 milligram of nitrate N per liter. But we'll see what happens in the next in the next year. We are working on a second paper with results from the long phase greenhouse experiment. So that should be published, if we're lucky, this year as well. So I just want to thank our partners in this trial. So of course the COHA with the clusters project, but we also have some private companies involved as well, 2 professional associations in this project. So I'm ready to take questions if you have some.